Thank you for inviting me back to speak with you. I think I was here maybe 2 years ago when Matthew was here. And it's been a while. I still remember this building. It's beautiful. Are church and state really separate in this country? This has been a topic that I wonder about for a long, long time. So I thought I'd basically just explore it openly with you. I grew up in the island of Taiwan, where many religions were practiced. I never feel pressure to conform to any. Most of the time, the government stayed out of the way. But as children, we were taught to follow the rules based on Confucianism, which has dictated our lives and permeated the way government is run. We were taught to respect hierarchy and follow the rules that adult with authority has laid down. When we break the rule, there will be punishment. The fear of punishment has guided us our whole life. We don't really need another religion. But you can also say that Confucianism is our religion, although it's not about a deity or a god. It's a 5,000 years of tradition. No religions can beat that. All around the world, many people dream about coming to the U.S., not just for an opportunity to build a better material life, but also to enjoy the freedom to be who they are. This was made possible because this freedom was founded by its Constitution. It's every citizen's privilege and responsibility to uphold. As an immigrant, I fully appreciate the freedom of self-expression guaranteed by the First Amendment. This includes religious freedom because of the establishment of separation of church and state. To further educate myself, I needed to learn more about the concept and also what's the origin. Forgive me for repeating something you probably already know. Roger Williams, a colonist, was ordained as an Anglican minister in 1629, but became disillusioned with the Church of England's hierarchy, wealth, and political power. In the winter of 1636, Roger Williams was banished by the Puritans from his home in Salem for preaching new and dangerous ideas such as religious freedom and spiritual equality. This was considered a rebellion against the theocracy system at the time. With his imminent arrest, he fled to a place called Moshachuk, later renamed Providence. Williams and his followers chose to create a government with limited power to protect him and his followers' freedom to practice their faith their way. This was a radical new idea for separation of church and state. The laws of this government would only address the civil matters. It would only have power to decide issues such as taxes, public works, project, property laws, military affairs, would have no authority whatsoever over the religious or spiritual matters. And because they needed a fair way to make decisions as a government, without drawing on a religious belief that not everybody believed in, so they chose to use a system called democracy. From his coining of the phrase of the separation of church and state comes our First Amendment of Constitution, which was ratified in 1791. I'm going to repeat the First Amendment. Obviously, I'm a naturalized citizen. I was forced to study this. So I'm going to repeat that. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. For someone like me, coming from an authoritarian society, this amendment felt like fresh air and brought me to tears often. As a nation built on our American model, e pluribus unum, we are gathered as one of many as democracy, which means we're a nation of diversity. The First Amendment is designed to protect the citizens' rights to choose their religious practice, including not practicing at all. As America's religious practice becomes more diverse, protecting religious pluralism has become more important. However, just because we say we have a variety of religious, spiritual practice doesn't mean that people feel they have the equal rights and protection. For years, this country, the majority religion has been Christian, although there's many different kinds. It's like what Tracy was saying. But it also created, for years, because of this, they have a dominance, and the dominance culture usually is the one who put the norm together. So this is what we call power dynamic. There's a dominant group called Christians, and there's a subordinated group that includes everybody else. But to someone who is not a Christian and who's not theistic at all or religious, the dominance is very obvious. As an immigrant to this country, I could easily detect religious influence, especially that of Christianity. This pressure didn't just come from government policy, but come from the culture itself. On the surface, it certainly looks like we honor all traditions, we celebrate all holidays, but only Christian holidays are official holidays when employees can take a day off. To celebrate all others, they must take personal days or their own vacation days or sick days. Muslims are often stereotyped as terrorists. My friend Mike and I were very active in Rotary Club for years. Although Rotary International is a secular organization, we noticed the clubs in the U.S. start their meeting with an invocation. When we challenged this practice, they said the practice was not denomination specific. But I said the word invocation still hinted this was a Christian practice. They're forcing non-Christians to go along with it. When Mike refused to do that, the club president offered to bring him a sample or two of the invocation. All he had to do was read it. For years, I didn't put up any Christmas decoration. My neighbor asked if I need some help. When I said no several times, she finally said she would do it for me. This just like get invited to somebody's house for dinner, and the host said, "Let's pray." Everyone bowed their head and followed. No one asked me if I was Christian or not, or do I even pray. So this is the assumption of the dominant group is another way of their behavior. Of course, most of the time, these are well-meaning people. They think they're being helpful by making us more like them. But to us, the non-Christians, this is a pressure for us to assimilate. When I tell people that I am a chaplain, they immediately associate myself as a Christian faith, although the modern chaplain's role is to support all faith. We are trained to care for everyone. Most often, the patient didn't really care what my faith was, but my fellow chaplains had questioned my sincerity, just because although I am not a Catholic, but I often incorporate the Trinity in the prayer when I do for my Catholic patients. And then they also challenge my authenticity just because I have a different definition of blessings. So all of this is the typical way of dominant group exercise its power to set up rules and standards to judge the different others. Now, if we don't follow, we're seen as deviant or inferior. This daily little cut will add up to repressive environment for those who are not Christian. When Roger Williams created the concept of separation of church and state, did he intend for this wall to prevent encroachment from both sides? I wonder about that when I notice we have "In God We Trust" in both of our paper and coin money. In Orange County, supervisors start their public hearing with the invocation. This certainly looked like the religion has breached the wall. And I wonder if the religious freedom Roger Williams and his followers fought for was only for their Christian faith. What about all the other traditions? Do they deserve equal protection as well? Many of you and many of us have no problem with anyone who wants to practice their religion. The problem is when someone decides their religion is more legitimate and more important, then this can become a threat to the foundation of a democratic society. We may think we're following our motto, religious freedom, but it looks like we're letting one religion permeate and dominate our lives. In a social activist Paul Keevill's blog, he wrote, "I define Christian hegemony as an everyday, pervasive, systematic set of Christian values that dominate all aspects of our society through social, political, economic, and cultural power they wield. Christian hegemony operates on several levels. At one basic level is the internalization of the dominant Western Christian values and beliefs by individuals in the society. I just had someone next to me last night on the bar. He told me he's born again. For the next 15 minutes, that's where he was trying to convert me. Another level is the power that individual faith leaders have on people's life. Particularly certain churches and certain denominations are powerful in economics and political in the country. There's a vast network of parachurch organizations, generally tax-exempt, nonprofit, such as hospital, broadcasting networks, publishing houses, lobbying groups, and thousands of others that wield influence in particular spheres throughout the world. Another level of Christian dominance is within the power elite, the network of 7,000 to 10,000 predominantly white Christian men who control the largest and most powerful social, political, economic, and cultural institutions in this country. And finally, there's a level of the Christian legacy that seeped into the water we drink, and its dominance has become so invisible. It really pushes us to challenge every belief we have. Is it influenced by this dominant group? Obviously, dominance is much more than just pressure on me to put up some Christmas tree. As the demographic changes continue as a nation, we will find that it's very challenging to live with our differences in harmony. For decades, we've been fighting for racial and gender equality. Now we will need to fight for religious equality as well. According to Pew Research, in 1990, 90% of American adults claimed they were Christians. 30 years later, in 2022, that number went down to 63%. So, although Christians are still dominant in the population currently, but demographic changes will cause further decline in the Christian populations. When Christians are no longer the majority, just like when the whites are no longer the majority race, soon this change will have profound impact in our society. Any dominant group, in this case religion, will feel threatened when it is afraid to lose its power and dominance, that it's not willing to give up its privilege and controlling and benefiting from the agenda they set. So when they were pressured to make their tent bigger, to include and abide by the equal rights law for LGBTQ people, same-sex marriage, and women's rights to make their own reproductive decision, they frame it as a threat to their religious freedom and climb over the wall and demand the change of the law for their protection. In reality, it is not their freedom to practice that's at risk. It is their dominance. This is when the wall between the church and state starts to crumble. It is not the government that climbs over to the church side. It is the church that climbs over to the government side. Impede and intrude the government's ability to maintain a democratic system. The truth is that our beliefs and values make up our worldview. We cannot help bringing our worldviews into everyday life. Every decision we make is subjective. So, to truly separate church and state is to practice advanced citizenship. As we free people need to support the government that protects everyone's liberty. I remember President Biden said that although he is a practicing Catholic and pro-life, as a president represent the United States government, he must uphold the law to protect equal rights for the pro-choice people as well. I have lost sleep for a long time now, worrying about our democracy is under siege when we cannot hold up the wall of separation. In an interview, Amanda Tyler, who is a religious freedom advocate and a member of Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty, discussed the latest court cases and the trend of religious freedom. She said, quote, "I believe that the single biggest threat to religious freedom and our democracy in the United States now is the Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is antithetical to the constitutional idea that belonging in the United States of society is not predicated on what faith one practices or whether someone is religious at all. The political ideology that seeks to merge American and Christian identity is deeply embedded in the American society and manifests itself in several different ways. Some are more obviously harmful than others. The most violent expression is what we have said and seen at January 6th insurrection. Now, but there are so many other examples, like the state legislative effort to promote teaching of the Bible in public schools, or require posting "In God We Trust" in public places, or bring prayers and 10th Amendment back to public schools, and also ban public libraries' ability to provide all kinds of books for children to read. Or current administrations actively working to inject more explicitly Christian and religious sentiment into the U.S. military. Last month, the Department of Defense shrunk the list of 200 recognized religions down to 32. Unitarian Universalism is no longer recognized. You need to be on the street at this moment. Last Wednesday, 2/3 of Southern Baptists voted to advance a formal ban on women pastors in the nation's largest Protestant denomination, sending a clear message that men alone should preach to these conservative evangelical congregations. All these acts are dangerous in that they perpetuate a false narrative that to be a true American, one must be Christian, and often certain kind of Christians. Christian nationalism undergirds several threats to religious freedom, including anti-Muslim bigotry, anti-Semitism, government-sponsored religion, and individual freedom. At its core, the idea threatened the principle of separation of church and state and undermined the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. These issues will only draw more attention in the years ahead since the 6-3 conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court appears very eager to hear more religious liberty cases advancing Christian nationalist argument than in previous years, unquote. Now that I have totally depressed the hell of you, I need to remind you that you can fret and worry about the future threat of our liberty and the democratic foundation of our country, or we can spend every ounce of our energy to fight not from hate, but from our 8 principles that base on love. We have a lot of work to do. We got to get off our couch and go do it. Amen. Blessed be.